Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Sober Yoga Girl. I am really excited to have Sarah Keeble with me here today. And Sarah is in the UK, and we have been following each other on Instagram for a while. And Sarah is a sober cheerleader, and she has amazing content that is fun and inspirational on Instagram. And so I'm super excited to get a chance to finally sit down with her and chat and hear a little bit about her story. So welcome, Sarah. How are you?
Thank you so much for a nice welcome. Yeah, I'm good. Thank you.
Good. And it's super early morning for you, right?
Yeah, it's 6 a.m. So I guess that is, but I'm up quite early anyway. So it's not actually too bad for me.
Part of the sober thing.
Yeah, I quite like an early morning, actually. It's not so bad.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. It's so beautiful. And when you're not hungover, it's like amazing.
Yeah. Because it's like I wanted to get every minute of all the time. I wanted to use it all. And when you're not hungover, it's like it's so nice to wake up early and not wake up early because you're hungover, because you've actually got time to spare.
Yeah, totally. So nice. So tell me a bit about yourself. I know you're based in the UK. Tell me a bit more about you.
Yeah, so 28, live in Hastings in the UK. I have been sober now for 14 months. And my decision to quit actually wasn't like a thing that I'd already planned. It was something that there were a load of things that built up to it, which we can talk about. But my actual sort of decision was just I had another really bad hangover and I said, I'm going to have a little break. And it was, I think I said about 4 weeks. I'll just have 4 weeks off and see what happens. And then I did 4 weeks. And then we went into lockdown in the UK. So all the pubs and bars and everything shut. So it kind of my decision to not drink, because for me, I was very much a going out binge drinker. I wouldn't drink at home. So it took away the resource to be able to do that. And then it was like 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks. And I think by the time pubs opened again here, I'd been sober for about 4 months. So I already had like a good chunk there. And I was starting to see improvements, and it's just sort of carried on from there really. And I haven't ever stopped.
Wow. So that would have been mid-pandemic then, right? The pandemic's been longer than 14 months. Because as you were talking, I was like, I feel like the pandemic's been 2 years.
Yes.
So you must have been out of lockdown for a bit and then gone back into lockdown. Is that what happened?
So it was, when was it? It was October 2020.
Okay. Yeah.
So we had lockdowns, sort of like restrictions on things about how you could see and what things you could do. And then we had a full lockdown. I can't remember if we'd already had one before, but yeah, it definitely it sort of had gone in and back out.
Yeah. I kind of remember that time. Actually, it was like winter of last year, because I remember we were off school for a couple of months too. And I just remember my yoga classes got really busy because like everyone was in lockdown. Okay, cool. Amazing. And it's so interesting how you shared, like, we'll get more into it, but you hear from people around the pandemic. It's like either the pandemic made drinking better for them or worse, depending on what type of drinker they were, like if you're a social drinker, then being in lockdown is like an opportunity to take a break. But if you're someone who drinks alone and isolates, then lockdown could make it worse. So it's really interesting how I've heard it kind of going either way.
Yeah, I've heard definitely the same as that. It's either, it makes people think, I don't want to do this anymore. Or similarly, unfortunately, if you are someone that drinks at home, I suppose it's now even easier because you're at home more. So, and you can.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell me a bit about yourself. When did you start drinking?
So I started when I was probably about 14, 15. So I lived with my mum and dad. My dad was an alcoholic. So when I was younger, I was always aware of alcohol and knew like what it was, and I knew that he was an alcoholic, but I didn't really know what it meant when I was younger. So my mum and dad got divorced, and my mum moved away because he was, I suppose, not a very good husband or dad at the time because of, problems that he had with alcohol. We moved away, and I don't know, I always just sort of I felt like I always struggled to fit in when I was younger. Like I was a very quiet child. I was an only child, and I struggled with things like making friends and fitting in with things. And I kind of passed from group to group. And then till I was about 14. And then when I was 14, I changed school because we moved the last couple of years of school. And I made like a new group of friends. And then that group of friends we all had very similar things in common, of perhaps having trauma going on when we were younger, or single parent families or whatever, and we all kind of gelled and started drinking together, as I think a lot of teenagers do. And that's where it kind of originally started, when I was about 14, 15. And I think it came from a place of like wanting to fit in because other people were doing it. So it was like, well, I'll do it. And then that means I get friends by doing it. And it kind of went up from there.
Yeah. It's so common, such a common experience of like, I was just thinking like the culture we grew up in, like me in Canada, but you in the UK, it's like people just did it as teenagers because that was what everyone was doing. And you don't even question, right?
Yeah, because it's like, well, everyone else is doing it and my friends are doing it. And I don't want to be the one that's saying, oh, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Because then if you don't, you're actually the one that's the odd one out.
Yeah, totally.
No, yeah. So I was just going to say, so that was kind of, yeah, it must have been about 14, 15 drinking. And then pretty much so we would drink every weekend. And then we would also then we drank a few times like in the weeknights, and then I'd miss school and just things that as a teenager, at the time I thought it was funny and it was kind of cool to be a bit rebellious. And I think it was almost coming from a place of like wanting attention, wanting someone to notice me. The only child, and me and my mum have had a bit of a tense relationship growing up, so I think it was almost like a look at me, look what I'm doing kind of thing. This went on till I was probably about 18, drinking a lot and rebelling and doing different things. And then I moved out when I moved out when I was a little bit younger. When I was 18, I had my own first like flat, and I just thought it was great. I was like, I've got my own space, I can do what I want, I can come and go when I want. But that only fueled things, because then I was 18, I could go to bars and clubs and I had my own place, so I could go out every weekend and I could have parties when I want, and I could have people back to my house. And then it just gave me even more free reign to carry on with the drinking.
Mm-hmm. And so how did it escalate over time?
It's one of those things. So I started drinking the smaller things like wine, and we had like Lambrini and cider and like the things that you could get your hands on when you were younger, because that's all we could get. I remember quite a few times having to stand outside shops when we were like 16, 17 and ask people to go in the shop and buy alcohol for us because we didn't buy it, and it was just what you could afford. We were only teenagers, so it was like a bottle of wine or a bottle of cider or something. And then when I was 18 and I could start going out properly, we were going to bars. And then that's when I started really trying spirits and shots and different things. And I learned quite quickly on that my tolerance was quite good. So I could drink more than some of my friends, which meant I could then stay out longer with friends. And it kind of all just evolved as like the more I drank, the more fun I felt, and the more I felt like I had people around me, because it was like I adopted this persona almost of this like party girl, and it was like, oh, Sarah's always up for fun, Sarah's always up for a laugh and a night out. And then I felt like I could never drop that because it almost became expected of me. And yeah, it was just one of those, the more I did it, the more I could do it. So then it was almost like I kind of lived for that. Every Friday, Saturday, that was what I wanted to do. I couldn't even think of doing anything other than going out and having a drink. I just would think, what else does everyone do with their weekend? And I never had anyone to tell me, no, that's a bad idea, or no, you shouldn't do that, because my friends all did it. Everyone in my circle that I'd surrounded myself with did it. And I was kind of comparing and like, well, everyone else does this, so clearly I don't have an issue. Everyone else is out binge drinking and going out every night and like on the weekend. And so there was no moment for a long time where I really thought that I had an issue with it.
Yeah. And I can so relate to that, because I feel like that was like the social circle that I surrounded myself with, when I was in high school and university. And so it was just normal. It didn't make me seem like there was anything abnormal about me, because that's what everyone else was doing. Yeah,
exactly. And I think it's that thing, isn't it? You compare yourself. I don't know if you've ever read Catherine Gray's book.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think something in there she says about like comparing it to other people. And it's like, oh, all the time my friend's done that, then it's fine. And then even if it goes up a level, like you've had a blackout, it's like, oh, but my friend's also had a blackout, so it's not just me. And there's always something to compare yourself to.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Or like, oh, that person, actually had to go to rehab or had to join AA or whatever. Okay, I'm not that bad.
Got to that level. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
Yeah.
So
Mm.
tell me about what was the sort of the turning point for you?
Yeah, so this went on for many years of just constantly, I felt like there was a little part of me deep down that really felt like you're messing your life up. Like, you're just doing so many wrong things that you shouldn't be doing. Like, my mum and my nan were less than impressed. And as I got older, they'd been trying to talk to me and say, I really think you should sort your life out, basically. And I didn't want to listen. And I got in trouble with police, and I fell out with friends, and I started to have more blackouts. And it was clear that my drinking was taking more of a dangerous pattern of binge drinking. It wasn't now just, I couldn't go out on a Friday night, say, and have 2 drinks. It would be, I'd go out on a Friday night and I'd go all the way through to the Saturday morning,
Right.
very early hours. And then, and it was having more and more nights like that. It started to escalate that every night out I couldn't remember things. I was blacking out. I'd lose my phone. I'd upset someone, and constant these patterns of behavior. And then, so when I was about 19, 20, I think, I hadn't seen my dad since I was about 6. I hadn't seen him at all. We just completely cut off contact. And then when I was about 20, I got a message from this alcohol support worker saying that he's working with someone that matches the descriptions of what my dad would be. And he's been looking for his daughter. Basically, am I interested in talking and swapping details to see if it is that? And we swapped details, and we kind of spoke for a while. And it turns out the person he was working with was my dad.
Wow.
Yeah. So I hadn't seen him, like I say, for 14 years at this point. And
Wow.
he went over the history, and it turns out that after mum and dad had divorced, my dad had kind of carried on drinking, gone into a spiral, and it'd gone on for years and years until he'd eventually passed out somewhere, and someone had taken him to hospital, and then he'd gone into rehab, and he'd been sober for about 5 years. And I just remember feeling like my whole world, like shit, like I don't know what to do with myself now at this point. And it made me, I didn't quit drinking at that point, but I think that sort of started the seed of, wow, that's what if it went to that point. And it shows what alcohol can do. I mean, this person lost his whole family, and had to go to rehab and all these different things. And it made me really think, wow, that could happen to you if you carried on down that same path. That planted a little seed. We had a sort of relationship with my dad. It was awkward because it had been so long and so much time had passed, and he had liver and kidney damage from the years of drinking. He'd also developed a form of dementia, so he could remember all the long term, which is how he knew he had a daughter, and he knew he had someone to look for, and he had family and things, but he couldn't retain short term information. So if we'd have a conversation, he'd forget it about the next day. Wow. So yeah, it was like bittersweet. It's like I had my dad back because he was like my absolute hero when I was younger. I didn't realise until I was older and stepped away from it of really what an alcoholic meant and what all these things were, and the damage he'd caused. That when I was younger, I just thought he's my dad. I was like a daddy's girl. And we had a sort of relationship, and repaired stuff as best that we could, but it was bittersweet because, like I say, he had these things wrong with him and he couldn't remember things. So it was very harrowing, and it just kept reminding me of this is all caused from alcohol. Alcohol caused all of this. And then he passed away about just over 2 years ago. So it was about 6 months after he passed away that I then had that light bulb moment of, okay, I should take a break. And I still didn't ever think of it as I need to stop drinking completely, but I had a moment of I need to have a break because I'd had another bad night out. But I think subconsciously, I think it all started from that, and kind of just little seeds of doubt until I eventually almost had the wake up call that I needed as to, you need to actually do something now.
Wow, what a story.
That was a lot for a couple of minutes there.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. It's just what you've been through has been so, that must have been so hard to lose your dad and then have him back. But in the way where, with the short-term memory and not being able to retain conversations from the day before, that must have been so difficult.
Yeah, it was really hard. And And when I first started speaking to him to when he actually passed away, I think there's about 5 years there. And I look back on it now and I think when that first happened, that probably should have been the wake up call of like, wow, you should now sort it out right now. But if anything, I think it made me go further into wanting to drink and party and stuff, because it was almost like anytime anything stressful happened or I had grief or anything like that, I didn't deal with it. I didn't face up to it. I just had a drink because that was the easiest thing to do. You can swallow down your feelings, and instead of maybe having therapy or talking to someone, I just went out and had a drink. And I think it went the opposite way, and I was like angry at the world and these cards I'd been dealt, and just a bit of a pity party that's not fair. And yeah, I think it's only then, like I say, as time went on and I saw how ill he actually was and the kind of things it can have, that then it started to have seeds of doubt of, okay, maybe you're going down the exact same way and going off the rails and drinking more isn't going to solve anything or prove anything. It's actually just doing exactly the same kind of thing that he did, and you need to do something, different to that.
Right. Wow. And so you quit drinking, and how did you, like you said, it was during the pandemic. Did you just stop on your own? Did you use any supports? Like, what did you do?
Yeah. So, my husband said he would do it with me. So we'd had another night out, and it was, again, we'd gone out for a few drinks, and then it'd been way more than a few drinks. We'd been out all night because, so my husband used to work at a club. He used to be a DJ. So I met him kind of when I was like prime drinking, and so was he. So we kind of must have gravitated to each other and almost enabled each other. So he didn't have a problem with my drinking and vice versa. We had another night out anyway, and it was just one of those ones where we'd had people back at ours. We'd had sort of an after party, and it'd gone on to about 5 a.m, and we just sort of woke up feeling really hungover and just sort of looked at each other and was like, should we actually just have a break? And I'm just sick of feeling ill all the time and hungover and wasting my week. Have a break. And we both just sat down and said, yeah, let's have a break. It'll probably be 4 weeks, just take a month off and go from there. And then after the first 4 weeks, it was hard actually not to be able to go out and drink or anything. But because he was doing it with me, we kind of kept each other going through it. And then as time went on, it just got a little bit easier. And I'm really stubborn. So I think because I'd said to myself, I'm not doing it, I didn't want to then also let myself down.
Right.
Or like a kind of bet, like who could go the longest. So I wasn't going to give in. Then I started I can't remember where I saw it, but I just saw this book, The Sober Girl's Handbook, Millie Gooch. Saw it advertised somewhere. I don't know if it's just because it happened to just be ads that popped up, and I bought the book and read it and loved it. Then I started to realize there was a whole world of books of Quit Lit and all these other things. And I started to just absorb them all. I just bought so many, and I would just sit and read them for ages. And then that was like the first sort of stepping point into really recovering and realizing, okay, there's all these different reasons why I might have had drink, and there's different supports that you can use. And then I sort of announced my sobriety to Instagram when I was about 4 months sober. I wanted to have a kind of a firm amount before I announced it. And I announced it and did this post, and I had some nice comments from people. And then I didn't know there was this whole world of sober Instagram accounts out there. I didn't even know it was a thing. And I think I just searched the word sober one day, and there was just all these accounts that came up that I started to follow. And it kind of all just went from there, really. So my biggest things I would have said would be, the Quit Lit books, and then the sober Instagram account has been the biggest thing by far to help.
Yeah. And I think that's so incredible that your husband went along with you, because this is like one of the biggest things that I come across is like people having a partner who is still interested in drinking and not ready to give it up. And then there's like this kind of conflict between the two as they're both at different stages in their journey. And so I just think that's so amazing that you both had each other.
Yeah, it really helped. And he actually did go back to drinking after a couple of months, but it really helped me having that foundation in the beginning, I think, of someone doing it with me. So I didn't feel like the odd one out. If he'd been still drinking or having people around for drinks, I definitely would have struggled. I don't think I would have been able to do it. And especially without having the lockdown, I don't think I would have been where I am. And then he went back to drinking after a few months, and I carried on. And then when I think I got to about 8 or 9 months, and he turned around and said to me, I wish that I just stayed with it the whole time, because he'd seen so many different improvements over the last few months.
Right.
He said, I wish I just stayed with it. And now he's actually gone back to not drinking again. And it's now been
amazing.
Yeah. So.
And how long has it been?
About 4 months now that he's not been drinking.
Amazing. That's awesome.
Yes.
That's really cool. And you mentioned sober Instagram too, and the Quitlet books. I'm totally the same. Like, I think I was maybe 40 days sober when I came across the first Quitlet I came across, which was Catherine Gray's book. And I remember in her book, there was like resources of like all these other books, all these other podcasts, Instagrams. Like there was one page where she just listed things. And I was like, oh my God, like there's this whole world out there.
I know. I absolutely adored her book. I read it, and I've read it a couple of times, and it was one of those books that just really resonated with me. I think her book's amazing. I always recommend it. And yeah, I remember seeing all the resources and stuff. And then I think it took me a while to put the post out again, like probably with you. I didn't want to do it straight away because I wanted people to take me seriously, because I thought if I said I'm not, we'll just go, oh, you always say you're not drinking again. Right. Like, what's different this time? I wanted to have a kind of an amount behind me to say, actually, no, I'm being serious. It's been a few weeks or whatever. This is something I seriously want to do. And I was just really nervous about the whole stigma. I think there's so much stigma that being sober is boring. And I thought if I put this out now, everyone's going to say, oh, so you're boring now. You don't do anything fun now. Or, or go the other way, and people might think that I was an alcoholic. Not that there's anything wrong with that. But in my head at the time, it was like, oh God, what if all these different judgments come out?
Right.
Out there and saying, I don't drink anymore.
It's very, it's vulnerable. It's hard.
Yeah. But it just sort of grew from there, really. I did that first post, and I've been about 4 months sober. And then every now and then I would sort of do a post, because I was too lazy to make a separate account. So I just merged my normal account with a sober one. So every now and then I would just do a post about being sober and how it was going. And then slowly but surely I had some old school friends message me to say, oh, I've seen that you're not drinking anymore. Like, that's really good. It's glad that you sort of turned it around. And I had nice comments. And I just remember thinking, oh, maybe I should do more with this. And I spoke to my husband, and I just said, I just get a really nice feeling if I've helped someone else. Like if one person really posts and it helps them, then that's, an amazing thing. And I was like, I want to actually carry on and do this more. And I would just post a little bit more, or a video up or something. And the more, like nice feedback I had, the more I wanted to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And so at what point did you change your handle to have sober in the title?
I think that was when I was must be when I was about 8 or 9 months sober. And I remember thinking when I did it, I thought, what if everyone just thinks like you're a massive twat? So I just thought, just stop banging on about it. I thought, what if people just think she just preaches about it all the time and just bangs on about it, and now she's sober in her thing, and who does she think she is, sort of thing. It's not like it's been years. But then my friends were like, no, but that's what you post about now. So it makes sense to have your account dedicated to that.
Totally.
So, yeah.
Totally. I love that.
Didn't want it to be like, I didn't want people to feel that I was preaching at them, because I know when I was drinking, if someone had kept going on to me of like, oh, you shouldn't drink, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that, I wouldn't listen. It would make me want to go the other way. So I always want it to be in a way that's like helpful and advice, but no one to feel like I'm, shoving it down them. Like, it's your choice still.
Right. Yeah. And I think you do a good job of that. Like, I love your content. I think it's really fun and funny and relatable. And like nothing about it that is preachy.
Oh, well, that's good. Thank you.
And so tell me, what is your, where do you see yourself going with like your sober work? Like, do you think you'll just carry on with like the Instagram stuff? Have you ever thought about doing like group stuff? Or
I actually really want to do a blog, but I have no idea how to get into it. But that's something that I actually really want to do, because I just feel like I've got so much stuff that I want to talk about, and the Instagram posts is just not enough like characters to put in there. And I love the idea of a blog and having somewhere where people can go and, read, and something, it can be specific topics and things. I'm going to host actually my first sober event at the end of January.
Amazing. Yeah. Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah. So I'm going to do a coffee morning and have an event. So I think hopefully next year we'll just bring more. I just want to help as many people as possible. And yeah, now the world's kind of going back to normal a little bit, do some actual real life things like some events and just spread the word out there, really, that being sober is fun and not boring and dull.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
That's amazing. So is the coffee meetup it's going to be live in the UK?
Yeah.
Cool.
So keeping it to 10 people so that it's not too overwhelming for people, because I know how scary it is going to a sober event, because I've been to a few with scary meeting people that you don't know. So it'll be 2 hours, 29th of January. I'm going to do a post about it a little bit nearer the time, but yeah, and then hopefully that will then help people have some connections, because I've had a few people say to me, I don't know anyone in my area, or people from near me saying I don't know anyone in real life that's sober. So I'm hoping it will kind of bring some people together, because a lot of stuff's always nothing right in the south. So yeah, and hopefully might see a blog from me at some point. I just need to figure out how to start it. Yeah.
Oh, that's incredible. Well, we have a lot of podcast listeners in the UK. So if anyone is listening to this and is interested in Sarah's coffee meetup, I'm going to put a link to Sarah's Instagram in the episode description, so you can find her and find out more about it.
Thank you very much.
So I have one more question for you. If you had any advice for someone who wants to start a sober journey, what advice would you give them?
What would I say? First of all, don't let anyone else's opinion of you put you off, because I think that's one of the biggest things of people. Is I always hear people say they don't want to be perceived as being boring or being dull, or they don't want them to. So people worry about being left out of things, I think, with their friends. I know it's easier said than done, but really try and not worry what other people's opinion of you is. I think if someone actually thinks you're boring because you're not drinking, then that says more about them than it does to you. And I think try and find like-minded people. That's the biggest thing. Try and find other people that are like you, whether that's in your area or whether that's via, Instagram or Facebook or whatever social media platform. Some people I know go to AA and do different meetings, whatever it is, find your support system, because that's just the biggest thing, I think, to find people like you. It just makes it so much easier to know that you're not doing it on your own.
Yeah, totally. 100%.
Yeah, that's it. And also have some good alternatives. That's another really good thing. I think if you can, and obviously if they're not triggering for you, then have some alcohol-free alternatives, because that's helped massively. Because then at least at parties and Christmas and things that we've just had, I've been able to have alcohol-free wine, so I can still join in with everyone. And when you go out for things, not feeling left out. So if you've got a certain drink that you really like, find an alternative for it. There are so many out there now. And I'm sure there'll be an alternative for it, and try that. And and just try the market a little bit. There's so many good drinks out there.
Mm-hmm. So true. I think I got a little bit too addicted to them. That's a story for another day, but it's been really good for me to be in Bali, where they have less access to them, because I was drinking them all the time. But they are amazing, so helpful in the early days, for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Well, Sarah, it was so nice to meet you and hear your story and chat. And I really appreciate you taking the time for being on the show this morning. So thank you so much
for having me.
And I'm sure I will see you soon.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Take care. Bye.